Guys, I'm currently in Brisbane, Australia. Between making this decision and actually following through, many people have asked, why are you going? What's your plan for when you get there? From my point of view, I've always found this school of thought a bit off, but couldn't put my finger on it. I gave it some thought and found two hidden assumptions behind this way of thinking. First, that the only way to make a living is by working for a company or someone, and that there is no other choice than working within the established system. Two, that making money is the end goal of living your life. Now, what do I mean by within the system and outside the system thinking? The most profound difference, I think, is in the fundamental skills they require. To succeed within the system, you need to be obedient and play by the rules. But oftentimes, these things are at odds with what really helps a business. I'd like to use an analogy here. The ability to spot a need and make a good application to solve that problem is what really works. This is also an ability that transfers well to other scenarios. In contrast to that, being able to perform well and make a good impression during an interview is an ability that caters to the system. A good diploma is also something that the system prefers. As you can see from the examples I laid out, to succeed within the system, developing abilities that cater to the system is inevitable. That takes away time from developing fundamental abilities. The thing about these abilities catering to the system is that whenever someone decides to change the system or a rule, these abilities go out of date. By contrast, when you build your path outside the system and shoulder all risks, as long as you can bring value to people, you'll be able to put food on the table and make decent money. The market always gives you the most honest feedback about your competence and decisions. There's no cushion in between, but there's no arbitrary rules holding you back either. Don't get me wrong, this does not mean you can do whatever you want without knowing how to market yourself. A lot of the time, you actually need to acquire more skills working outside the system. You're also exposed to more risk. You're up against the market and you have to cater to it. The good thing about this is that no one has a say about your decisions and competence because the market always gives you the most honest answer. So yeah, even if you're working outside the system, you still have to cater to the market and demonstrate your value. Working hard and hoping for the best is not going to work. But what I like about this is that once you learn how to market your value, this is a very transferable skill. You can use it to sell anything. Whereas abilities that cater to the system are often not transferable, and therefore difficult to generalize to other playing fields. There's a lot of talk about within and outside the system, but what does that have to do with my decision to move to Australia? When following a within the system mindset, the first thing you consider when moving abroad is how to get a long-term visa and a stable job. After all, your ability to make money is completely tied to those things. As secure as that sounds, your fate is often in the hands of someone else or the system. Say you lose your job or government changes the rule about immigration, boom, everything gone. You must start over and nobody will give a damn about your complaint and how much work you've put into what you've built. Everything you've done to cater to the system does not really belong to you, and you can't carry any of it with you, as the rules are made not by you, but by someone else. In contrast, when you choose a path outside the system, the rules are enacted by market forces. No one can change the rules single-handedly. The survival skills you gain to survive in this game are more generalizable and can be applied to varying scenarios, like the various skills I've learned along the way, like content creation, programming, language abilities, and mathematics. As such, when facing life choices, your perspective does a complete 180 from system-based thinking. Your abilities always remains yours, meaning you're not completely restricted by location and regulations. So naturally, you would not worry about how to stay at a country long term. At least in regards for me, if we ignore the risk of potential war, Taiwan is a pretty good place to live and allows me to get my job done through the internet. For this reason, getting a permanent visa or finding a good stable job wouldn't be the first thing I worry about. Basically, there are only two things you need to do on the outside the system path. 1. Keep enhancing your ability. 2. Make sure what you're doing and your abilities are seen. Hence, in thinking how to spend the limited amount of time I have in life, the first thing I think about is always, how do I make the most out of this next X amount of time and make sure I maximize the value created, abilities gained, and perspective broadened, as well as what multiplier effect this experience is going to have on my business. Following this line of thinking, I found out that Australia is a better place to live for this next segment of my life. It allows me to use English every single day, understand perspectives of people from around the world, and train the ability to start from scratch in a completely foreign country. Taking everything I've said into account, it becomes evident that this experience on its own is already worthwhile, with or without the potential to get a permanent visa. Having talked about paths outside the system, I want to address the other assumption people make when they ask about my plan and reasoning behind. And that is, every endeavor undertaken must be for some kind of an external outcome. But when you really think about it, what is the meaning of life? Is it work? Is it to make money? Every single person's life ends with death. You can't take anything with you. Money is nothing more than a means to optimize the process of experiencing life. It's a tool. Once you've satiated your basic survival needs, you inevitably go back to having experiences. If that's the case, life is but a process of writing a story. It's basically a game. When playing Pokemon, I wouldn't want to stay in Pallet Town. In the game of life, I wouldn't want to mistake what happens to appear before my eyes as the whole world before seeing it for myself. I'm not particularly keen to immigrate, nor do I not like Taiwan, but I want to explore the world. It doesn't matter if I stay here for 1 year or 2 years. There's going to be adventures and stories written on pages of my story of life. Ever since I started doing content full-time, I've been learning an array of things that interest me, and I've been making content that I deem valuable as my job. I often think that if I really get to one point where I have enough money to not worry about it anymore, what I would do probably wouldn't be much different from what I do now. So how much time is it really worth sacrificing to pursue more money or what others consider a steady job? Now, I did consider that moving to Australia overall was going to be a net positive and not net negative to my content as well as my career. So it does align with the long-term goal and has an external benefit. However, as my lifestyle is already very close to ideal, even if I get to a state of financial freedom, my life won't look much different from how it does now. So for me, financial freedom is not the end goal anymore. Some lose their purpose after achieving financial freedom. Some live an unassuming way of life once retired. Is what you're chasing after what you really want? There's no end state or true happiness. There's no goal worth dreaming about all day. Life is a storybook, it's a journey. No ultimate joy, no terminal station. Enjoy the process.